Hello. I figured I'd get in front of the camera again because we got to talk about climate change and the climate emergency that we're in. And I really want people to take it seriously. I don't know if you can see, I was just finished walking about from the train station just 15 minutes. I just got sweat. It's a little better today, but it's still humid out there, and I'm not cut out for this kind of humidity. And we're going to talk about the effects of climate change on people, where people may have to relocate to in the future, which areas are going to see the worst of it. And I'm just going to be focusing on the United States. So if you're, I'm not focusing on other parts of the world. We're just going to be focusing on the United States and, North American area in general, as to how the climate is changing and what areas are going to see the worst effects from it. And here in Long Island, you can see it's just getting more and more humid. That's the biggest thing, is that it's just getting more and more humid. When I was a kid, we never had such humid summers. We had heat in the summer. We had heat waves. We had some humidity but it would not last for days and days on end, where the dew points would be above 60 degrees. And I've been a weather watcher for a very long time. I've been watching the weather I started getting into the weather, I guess, when I was in my early teens. I actually had, back when I lived in North Wantar, I used to keep weather records. Was very attentive, and I always took full observations. Had a little weather shack in the backyard, took observations. We never saw wet bulb temperatures above 70 degrees back then. That was almost something unheard of, and now it's becoming more and more common because of the climate change that we're going through, the humidity. We're going to talk about how the East Coast is just becoming more and more tropical, and how am I going to cope with that in the long term? Obviously, for the longest time, Long Island's had sort of like the perfect climate. We're supposed to have a temperate climate. It's not supposed to be tropical here. It's supposed to be comfortable. The summers can be hot and there can be waves of humidity, but it's not supposed to be a constant thing. And the winter's supposed to be cold. We're supposed to have 4 seasons. I like having 4 seasons. But lately, we don't seem to be having 4 seasons anymore. We just have winter and summer. And we just go from one right into the other. And that's all due to climate change. And the climate is changing very rapidly, because what's happening is the Arctic is warming at a very rapid rate. We've seen what's going on in Alaska with the 90 degrees temperatures in the 80s, very hot in Alaska, and kind of humid too. And because the jet stream is coming all the way up from the Pacific and going all the way up into Alaska, bringing that heat, and that heat is causing the forests to dry out there, and you have all these fires going on. It's not an ecosystem that's used to that kind of weather. You have all the ice melt in the Arctic. The sea ice extent this year is the lowest it's ever been recorded at this time before. So I think we're going to set a new minimum this year. If some people think a blue ocean event isn't going to happen this year, I think it possibly could. But September is still a ways away. We're only in early July. And usually the ice reaches its minimum in September. We have many more days to go, and I think we're going to see a lot of that ice melt. And once that blue ocean event happens, and once there's no sea ice in the Arctic, that reaches a tipping point, and the oceans are going to heat up, absorb more heat, and it's going to rapidly warm up. And if you think the climate's changing rapidly now, well, just wait. Once that happens, it's going to really change. In this video, I'm going to go over some diagrams. I'm going to go over what I think might happen with the climate and with the jet streams. Obviously, we're seeing they're getting more wavy, because the jet stream is powered by the difference between the poles and the equator. And the difference between the poles and the equator is shrinking, because the pole is warming. The Arctic is warming at a much faster rate than the tropics are. So you have less of a difference in temperature between the two, slower jet streams, wavier jet streams, and that's what we're seeing right now. This has all been predicted. The potential for sea level rise, the heat, the humidity. I mean, it's been a challenge for me. It's personally been a huge challenge trying to adapt, because I'm not somebody who's cut out to handle the hot weather. When I was a kid, I never did well in the heat. I've never done well in the hot weather my whole life, and especially when it's humid out. Because when it's humid, when you have humidity, why is humidity uncomfortable? Well, humidity is uncomfortable because when the air has a lot of humidity in it, when you sweat, your body is sweating to cool itself down. And when your body sweats, if that sweat is not evaporating because it's humid, your body is not cooling down. So you're going to keep sweating, and you're going to keep overheating, and your body is not going to be able to cool itself off. Whereas in dry air, when your body overheats and you sweat, you get a cooling effect right away, and your body's able to keep itself cool. But in the humidity, your body cannot keep itself cool. And we're seeing more and more of these extreme humidity events in this country with dew points. I mean, I never remember as a kid dew points climbing up into the upper 70s to near 80. The highest dew points we would get was like maybe 70, 71, and that was only like once or twice this summer. Now it's like most of the summers like that, because the oceans are warmer, and you have warmer oceans, you have more humidity coming up off those oceans. And like I said, I'm going to explain to you in the diagram what we're going to see in the future. What does this mean for Long Island? What does this mean? How are we going to adapt? We have several ways we can adapt. We can move to a cooler climate, but of course, you know, if you want to go to a cooler climate, the Arctic is warming. You can go to Alaska and it's hot there, so there's no relief in Alaska. In much of Canada, the western half of Canada is hot too, so you can forget about that. You have to go to like eastern Canada, maybe extreme northeastern United States, or you have to look at elevation, elevating yourself above the heat, like Flagstaff. I'm just focusing on North America again. I'm not, some people said, oh, we'll go to the Southern Hemisphere. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk strictly about North America, and maybe a little bit of Europe, but mainly the Northern Hemisphere, because this is where the effects of climate change are most severe, because most of the greenhouse gases that are emitted are in the Northern Hemisphere. The science backs it up. Some people have posted, I've read something, because there's more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, trees are going to thrive. Well, you're wrong, because a lot of trees are not adapted to these climate changes going on. All right, you've seen the same thing with the southern pine beetles, and a lot of the forests. If you think the southern pine beetle problem is bad here, there are other kinds of pine beetles, like the western bark beetle and other kinds of beetles that are much more out of control in Canada and in Alaska, and they're decimating these forests, these spruce forests. These are not fire-adapted trees, so once they get dried out and the beetles attack them, you have literally dead trees all over the place. It's just kindling for a big fire, and that's what you have. It's not an ecosystem that's meant to handle that. It's not a pine ecosystem, so you got to keep that in mind. And it's scary. What is going to happen as we go into this new climate? And it's happening very rapidly. And I've come here and make this video because I'm really disgusted with the lack of urgency from the media about this, and the lack of urgency from the population, and the lack of urgency from our government, especially our president. Our president has said some really crazy things. I'm going to link this video to you. One of my viewers sent it to me. He said the oceans are small, or something like that. The guy, let me tell you something, Donald Trump is not fit to be president of the United States of America. He's senile, he's not capable of it, and at this point I think he needs to be removed immediately, because the more and more this man stays in office, the more and more damage he's causing to the planet, and he's single-handedly responsible for rolling back a lot of progress that has been made over the past 10 to 20 years in regards to emissions, and causing all these climate problems. And the world is not happy, and they're more and more pointing the finger at us in the United States, saying, well, we're trying to do our part in Europe, we're trying to do our part in the United Kingdom, we're trying to do our part in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in Germany, even China to some extent. People point the finger at China. China's put a lot of money into their mass transit. And you look at the United States, and there's nothing happening. It's just same old thing. And the world is going to start more and more pointing the finger at us, saying, hey, we're going through all these disasters because of the United States. And this is why Trump has to be removed. All right? I'd rather see him voted out, but obviously he is very much, it's all about that Wall Street big oil paradigm. And the problem is, it's not just Trump. Yes, the Democratic Party, like look at our governor, Andrew Cuomo, is part of the same problem. Wall Street is connected with greed, is connected with just the love of money, putting the profits above anything is basically what they're after. And the Wall Street likes big oil because it's profitable. They can make profits on it. And they don't really care about what's going on with the future. They just care about their own kind. We've been through this before. I'm not going to get into that again. But it's not sustainable because even their own kind is going to suffer the effects of climate change. A lot of the areas on Long Island where a lot of the Wall Street people live, particularly on the South Shore, and downtown Manhattan, which is the center of commerce, Wall Street is in downtown. All these areas are at risk of flooding due to climate change. So it's going to affect them too. There's nowhere you can run. There's nowhere you can hide. The climate crisis is going to be a disaster that, like we've never seen before. We're already seeing these disasters ramping up across the world. You've seen the freak storms here with the 5 inches of rain the other day, and you get these storms that just sit over the same area. 5 inches of rain, severe weather, storms that we've never seen before because of dew points we've never seen before. We have weak jet stream patterns, which mean that if there is a hurricane or tropical storm, they don't move fast like they used to. They sit over the same areas, and we're prone to that. We're on the East Coast, and we have to worry about that. So we can't afford to be stupid. I think that's going to be the title of this video. We can't afford to be stupid. The climate crisis is really starting to reach a critical point where action must be taken immediately to stop burning fossil fuels. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you what's going to happen, and then I'll be right back.
So we're going to first show you the weather patterns that are stuck in place right now. And we're looking at the jet stream here, and you can see, following the jet stream, you can see this is what it looked like on Saturday. We have this just huge wave or ridge over Alaska, this huge ridge, and this is bringing the heat literally up from the tropics, all the way up from like Hawaii. The heat is going all the way up into Alaska. And then another dip over here over the Pacific Northwest, and then another huge ridge in the east. And you can see nothing really much changes here. We have this huge ridge over Alaska, and nothing changes. It looks like maybe there's a little relief, but you could see, looking at the jet stream, how wavy it is, how diffuse it is, and how it's just stubbornly keeping the eastern half of the country in the humidity. So when we look at the CONUS view, we'll change this to the, actually we can look at the temperature actually. Let's look at the temperatures. So when we look at the temperature shaded here, you'll be able to see the temperatures that have been going on. So fortunately Alaska gets a little better for now, but you could see, look at the heat going all the way because of these ridges, bringing the heat all the way up into places that it's not supposed to get hot. Because again, you have this jet stream that is just out of order because of climate change. And you could see the heat going way up into places it's not supposed to go. And this is bringing a lot of warmth into the Arctic. It's going to help thaw permafrost. It's melting ice. And it's causing just chaos. So if we change a look, and we change this to the CONUS view, and we look at the dew points, you'll see what I mean about the persistent pattern east of the Rockies that we've been dealing with. And it's been like this more and more during the summer, where we just have humidity in the east. And this is all because the oceans here in the Gulf and in the Atlantic are well above what they're supposed to be. So if I move this along throughout the period, you will see that east of the Rockies pretty much stays humid. There's no relief for east of the Rockies. The Rockies are a barrier to the humidity. The humidity cannot get in here. I'm going to explain to you why that is and why this makes the West Coast, particularly this area here, much more favorable for our people to live in. And again, some people like the humidity, and they'll do okay. But there are people like me who don't do well in it. And take a look at these dew points here being predicted for next Monday. We have dew points in the 80s up into Illinois and possibly Minnesota. So this is very unusual, but you could see we have a jet stream that's all kinked up and stuck in place. And when these patterns set up, they just don't move at all. And this is going to be a huge problem. So this, we go from this, and now we look at earthnullschool.net. And we're going to look at the ocean temperatures. And the ocean temperatures are way above normal. The oceans are absorbing much more heat than they're supposed to be. And so when we look at sea surface temperature anomaly, and we're going to keep our eye on anomaly because this is the key here. This tells you where the warm water is, where it's warmer than it's supposed to be. And you could see much warmer water off the United States East Coast than normal, and much warmer water off Alaska. And this is helping bring the heat into Alaska. All right. Fortunately, the west coast of the United States, there is an upwelling pattern due to the geography. You get an upwelling, and this keeps the water cooler off the west coast of the United States, California generally. All right. So if we go and we look at the actual anomaly temperatures, you will see that water temperature anomalies off the east coast are, this is in Celsius, so let me make this Fahrenheit, 6 degrees above normal Fahrenheit. So generally ranging from 6 degrees above normal to 8 degrees above normal, warmer than it's supposed to be off the east coast. All right, and the Gulf, you're seeing similar anomalies, 5.9 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so all this warm water is bringing more humidity to the east coast, and there's nothing to stop it. It's like a bathtub, literally. The humidity is just driving the pattern on the whole east coast. And if we draw if we look at the actual temperatures, and we'll draw in a minute, we look at the actual temperatures off the Gulf Coast. We have water temperatures almost 90 degrees off New Orleans right now, which is absolutely insane. And even here in our area, in our neck of the woods, off the Jersey Shore, water temperature is 77. And if we go a little further offshore, water temperatures are above 80. That's enough to support a tropical storm or hurricane forming, not far away, but right off the east coast, because of these much warmer than normal water temperatures due to climate change. So looking again at earthnullschool.net and looking at this image of the sea surface temperatures, I'm going to draw for you what is going to happen, what is happening, and what we're seeing more of. All this warm water in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Atlantic is creating a lot of humidity, and like steam, it's just rising off and rising up the whole eastern part of the country. So it's rising up into the Midwest, and it's rising up into the east. So you have all this humidity coming in off the ocean, rising up and turning the whole east coast tropical, at least for 5 to 6 months out of the year. This is what we're seeing more and more of now. This is the direction we are heading in. All right, the west coast stays cooler because of several things. You have the cooler ocean water here, so the air that's moving over this ocean water is not picking up humidity. It's cool. All right, it's coming into California, and then you have the Rocky Mountains. All right, so you have the Rocky Mountains over here. Draw these in brown. All right, probably not too good of a drawing, but we'll try to do the best I can. All right. So there are barriers, and then there are mountain ranges over here too. So there are barriers to the humidity getting into certain areas because of the way the west coast is set up. And so the humidity comes in east of the Rockies. It can't make it this way. No, it won't make it this way. It won't make it this way. All right? No, it can only go this way. So it rises up east of the Rockies, and this is what we're seeing is this whole thing is becoming tropical. This whole area is becoming tropical, except maybe extreme New England. All right? This whole area is becoming tropical. Remember, we don't have a jet stream anymore. Normally the jet stream would push this away. Normally we would have a jet stream, and it would push air in from Canada, and normally we'd have a, but we don't have a jet stream anymore. The jet stream is very weak and wavy, and because of all this rising air, it's causing, like, because you have all this rising air, it's going to pull down the cool air here. So literally this is what's happening. You have this jet stream pattern like this, and you just have this huge ridge in the east. And this is what's causing this whole thing. And without a jet stream to move things along, this is what we're seeing more of. And then there's another player at play in all this, and that is the ice melting up in the Arctic. Lots of ice is melting, and it's bringing cool water down into eastern Canada, and that's helping to actually cool this area down here. So you have cool air over here, but you also have the warm air over here. So if you go north into eastern Canada, this is where you'll find your cold temperatures, your cooler temperatures. But the rest of everywhere is just warmer than it's supposed to be. Again, that jet stream has got a huge ridge going from there to Alaska, so you also have the heat going into Alaska and western Canada as well. But a lot of the dry air here is elevation driven because a lot of areas are higher up. So now we're going to take another look at a better map to show you well, we're going to first take a look and see what the scenarios could be. There are other scenarios at play that are happening right now that we're going to talk about. We have now pulled out to a larger view, and we are looking at Google Earth on the satellite, and we're gonna take a look and see what's happening with the center of cold. Now, normally, the center of cold is normally up over here. So the center of cold would be, we'll draw this as a big high pressure area over here. So the center of cold is normally in the center around the North Pole somewhere up this way. All right. But what's happened now, because of the ice melting and because it's warmer here, the center of cold is actually shifted over Greenland. So if we undo this and move the center of cold over here, because now this is where the center of cold is shifting, because all the sea ice is melting, so the center of cold is where the ice remains over Greenland. So this is shifting the jet streams. This is shifting the jet streams around. So now what's going on is the jet streams, instead of being centered around this area, and the polar jet stream is being centered around this area like this. Normally it would be centered around this area like this. All right, keeping Alaska and Canada cold. We're not seeing that now. What we're seeing is it shift over, and now we have this big ridge over here, a big ridge over Alaska, a big ridge over Western Canada. All right, and the center of cold is now around this area here, like this. I'm trying to draw the best I can, but the center is cold is sort of like over there. All right, so that's what's going on. All right, so the center of cold is now shifting this way, shifting eastward. And you think maybe that would favor the east coast with more cool air, but we're not seeing that necessarily, unfortunately. There's also a different part of the jet stream, the subtropical jet, which is starting to disappear. So this subtropical jet is starting to disappear down here. It normally was it's like two branches of the jet stream, but it's starting to just become this one branch of the jet stream. All right, and so you're seeing this pattern more and more and more get locked into place and cause problems. So things are changing, and right now what we're seeing right now is we're seeing the jet streams very wavy. So right now the jet stream, there's this huge ridge over. Well, actually, it goes like this. The jet streams are so kinked up. Normally, the way I drew the jet stream earlier is not even what it's going to look like. Because right now we have the distance between the ridges and the troughs are much shorter than they used to be. Because it's very wavy jet stream. So you have a huge ridge here, and then you have, this is what it sort of looks like right now. And you have a trough over here, and then a very tight trough, and then a huge ridge over Alaska going way up into Alaska like this. And so you have these huge ridges like this. And then you have another trough over the Pacific Northwest going like this. And then you have the ridge over the East Coast going like this. And then it comes down again over here like this. All right? But we still are in the ridge. That's the problem. We're still in the ridge. So you have the jet streams are just getting wavy. They're getting more diffuse. And again, this is all due to the warming of the Arctic. And so we're seeing tropical air surge up north and go into places that it's not supposed to be. And then we see what we had over Europe. We had this trough off the east coast, and then we had this huge ridge, and we went up here, bringing all the heat into Siberia again. So it's sort of like what the jet stream looks like. And you have all this heat coming up. Here's Africa. You have all the heat coming up into Africa, going into Europe now. Europe is becoming hot now because you have this heat coming from Africa that's not supposed to be in here, all right? And then you have this heat coming from the tropics up here, going up the east coast, going up the Midwest, and you have this heat coming up in here like this. And when the jet stream gets like this, it gets stuck, and it's not moving at all. And it's like the jet stream is no longer being driven by the difference between the temperatures between the poles and the equator. Instead, what you're starting to see are Hadley cells, or you're starting to see wherever the heat is, where you have the highest amount of heat in the oceans, like over here and over here, it's coming up, and it's pushing up the jet stream, and this is what's making the East Coast tropical. And it's also changing Alaska's climate too, and changing Western Canada's climate. And depending on where this sets up, I mean, you could see hopefully, I was thinking maybe it would favor the East Coast. Maybe we would see cooling of the East Coast. What I was hoping would happen is, at least we would get this vortex around Greenland, a polar vortex around Greenland, and bring the East Coast into cooler weather, like this. But that's not what's happening, unfortunately. At least not now. It could happen in the future if we could get this polar vortex to set up right. But unfortunately, the jet stream, the circumference of the jet stream around the pole is just getting very close to the pole. So instead of seeing this, we're seeing the jet streams just go way up over the East Coast because they're getting pushed up by the heat from the oceans, at least in the summer. But in the winter, it could change, and we could see Arctic blasts, and we see that. We see these huge temperature swings in the east. But still, the east is becoming more and more tropical, at least during the summer, and it's getting more and more unbearable. So where does one go? Where does one go to protect themselves from what's going on? And again, we're just focusing mainly on the North America area at this point. We're going to first take a look at see where the heat sources are. The heat sources are going to be the oceans. This is what we're seeing more and more. In the Atlantic Ocean right here is going to become one big heat source. Alright, one big, it's like having a steam bath right here. This is what it's going to be like, having a steam bath. The heat's just going to come off of this and affect the East Coast. Gulf of Mexico is your other heat source. Alright, again, the heat's going to come up, and this is all going to go up east of the Rockies. So east of the Rockies, this is where all this heat's going to go, right up east of the Rockies. It can't make it past the Rockies because, again, without a jet stream, mountains and things are going to play a bigger role in the climate. And the mountains are going to block the humidity from coming into the west coast. Alright, but the humidity will come right into the east coast, and it will get more and more tropical. And it's already happening. And then if you have hurricanes, well, they're also going to hit the east coast too. So you have more tropical storms, more hurricanes hitting the east coast. It's not going to be good for us because you're going to have this pattern. You're going to have this bubble of heat that's going to be going east of the Rockies. And Denver is experiencing heat too because Denver, the city of Denver, is on the east side of the Rockies. So you can't be on the east side of the Rockies. Anything east of here is just going to become tropical. All right. Where is it going to stay cool? Where is it going to stay dry? Well, it won't be Alaska either because you have warming in this area of the Pacific over here. All right, so you're seeing the heat come into Alaska more and more and more, and it's going to get hot there too. Too hot? Yep, even there, even into Western Canada, it's going to get too hot. Where are the cool places going to be? Where are the places you're going to be safe? Well, two places. All right. Yes, there's Greenland because you have the ice here, obviously. And it's going to take a lot longer to melt the ice up here in Greenland than on the sea ice, which is melting very rapidly. So this area right here, eastern Canada, maybe into the extreme northern New England, will be protected to some extent. And the other area that will be protected is the Intermountain West. All right. So that will be this area right here. All right. That includes Flagstaff, and Flagstaff is an ideal location. All right, because you have the mountains here, and you have these big mountains that are going to driving the weather now. They're going to be driving the weather. The mountains are going to be all the orographic features and the geographic features are going to be driving the weather. And these mountains are like a barrier to the humidity. It has trouble making it. The moisture has trouble making it up around these mountains. So this area is going to be like a high desert to some extent. That's exactly what it is. And it's going to become more so like that. So these are generally the areas where you're going to be safe from the heat and the humidity, especially the humidity, which is the main thing. You want to avoid the humidity because with the humidity comes the violent storms and the hurricanes. It's one thing to deal with heat if it's a dry heat. It's another thing to deal with the humidity. And these storms are going to cause power outages and cause problems. And you can't survive without air conditioning when it's in the 80s and the dew point is upper 70s. You can't survive. It's very hard for people to survive those kind of conditions. And it's only going to get worse, and it's only going to get more humid. Another place that could be safe is Iceland, by the way. That could also be a safe haven. So let's now take a closer look at Flagstaff as to one of the areas that I would think, at least for folks in the United States who like pine barrens or pine piney environments and nice blue skies, Flagstaff is going to be one of those places people are going to escape to. Here, the weather's tendency to be more cloudy, and there's not as many pine forests in this area as well. So, and it's also in Canada; it's not in the United States. So that's another thing, you know. Before I go to look at the map some more, I want to look at this article. Here it says New York City of 2080 will be as hot as Arkansas. So it's going to become tropical. This is what I'm saying. It's going to become like the Gulf Coast. You can't survive that. I think this could happen a lot sooner, too. A lot sooner than 2080. We're already seeing things like that. So this is the site here. This new tool is what we're going to look at. And one of my viewers told me about this a while ago, but I want to share it with you again. Because it's really a really interesting tool. So if we look at this tool here, and you'll see here, we're going to make a line to the most similar climate. All right. So if we click in New York City, it's going to give us two solutions here. All right. So this is what's going to happen for New York City in high emissions. Which is the way we're going right now. It's going to feel like Arkansas. So look at how much hotter and more humid it gets. It's going to become like the Gulf here. The whole East Coast is going to become like that. Look at Massachusetts. Massachusetts is going to become like Maryland. All right, we're going to have huge changes in the climate here because of the like what I just went through with the whole East Coast becoming tropical. We have nothing to stop that tropical air from coming in. But now let's shift over to some of the cities out west. Let's go to Flagstaff. Notice how much shorter the line is for Flagstaff. So it'll just feel like Show Low, Arizona. Alright, so it'll just feel like Show Low, Arizona, which is warmer, but is not as dramatic of a difference because, again, the mountains are protecting Flagstaff because the Flagstaff is in the mountains. So now let's go ahead and look at Flagstaff. Right, this is a Google Maps of Flagstaff, and you'll see that, yes, you have Phoenix and you have Flagstaff. Flagstaff is cooler, not so much because it's further north, but because it's in the mountains. These are all mountains. These are all elevated areas a mile high, or at least 6,000, 7,000 feet up. So they're higher up, they're in the cooler air, and they catch a little more moisture, even though there isn't much humidity here to begin with, so you do have enough moisture for trees. It's not a desert like around Phoenix. And Flagstaff is surrounded by these mountain ranges. So you have mountain ranges here in California. You have the Rockies here. So the humidity is not getting past this. And anything that comes up from the Gulf will also be stopped by mountain ranges over here too, in Texas and Mexico. So it's not getting in here. The humidity is not getting in here. That's the bottom line. So, and you know, to me, this is the place that I may have to become a climate refugee in the future. And I just don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to last here as the climate rapidly changes. Especially if we go ice-free this year in the Arctic, it may only be a matter of years before I may have to leave Long Island. Then I might not be able to survive anymore. The physical toll the humidity is taking on my body, and the mental toll too, and not being able to get outside is very hard to deal with. You know, when you could be in a place like this, and I'll just show you what it's like in Flagstaff in the city. Now, they do have a good they do have a bus system that runs in the city. It's I think it's called Mountain Line or something like that. So I'm just going over towns I may have to move to in the future. So this is what Flagstaff looks like in the city. You just have these beautiful views, beautiful blue skies. It's a dry climate. It's not humid in the summertime. As you get later in the summer, there is a bit of a monsoon season where you do have a little more moisture in the air, and you get these thunderstorms and showers in the afternoon. They call it a monsoon season. But all our climate's going to become monsoonal because the jet stream will no longer be a factor anymore in our weather. And you can see just beautiful piney woods all over the place. You have these ponderosa pines. They look a lot like pitch pines. And again, it gets very cool. In the summer, generally temperatures are in the upper 70s and low 80s here. But the key is the dew point never rises much above 50 here. It's very low dew points, very dry air. Of course, it's very dry. It's the other extreme, but it's easier to deal with that. And, you know, maybe your skin will get dried out, and you know, and stuff like that. At least when the sun is shining on you and you start sweating, that sweat evaporates right away, and you feel cool. And that's the main thing. You get outside and walk around outside without, you know, sweating uncontrollably like I do here Whoa. There's just a big explosion here. I don't know what that was. Somebody shooting off a firework, I guess. Kind of scared me. So, yeah, here's the bus right here. So this is the mountain line right here. So this is the bus system they have that just get you around the city, but it doesn't take you outside the city. But there are so many beautiful places within the city limits. And you've got to remember, the climate crisis is going to hit the cities hard. You may not want to be in a big city like New York because of every time. Imagine hurricanes every year in New York, the kind of chaos it's going to bring. You don't want to be in a heavily populated place. You want to be in a more lightly populated place. But of course, the problem is you have Northern Arizona University over here, which is down here, I believe. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, here it is. And there's a big finance school, and you have a lot of these finance students coming in and making it more expensive. It's not at the level Long Island is, but if I have to move here and be in the future, I don't know if there's even a housing program or if I'd even be able to find housing in the city of Flagstaff. But I certainly will have to do what I can for my own well-being, regardless of what other people want to do, because I have to look out for my health in the future. And this is a really nice place to live if if you want to get out of the Northeast and you want Pine Barrens. This is as close as it's going to get to you. It's still not the pitch pines, but it's very close to. These pines look a lot like pitch pines. You can see they look a lot like pitch pines. The shapes are very similar, and they are absolutely beautiful. And you'll have days where the skies are just blue, and you'll be able to go outside. The only thing is the air is a little thinner because you are at altitude, but I believe the body does adjust to that, and I think that's also made up for the fact the air is cleaner here. So you have cleaner air here, so even though the air is thinner, it's cleaner. So look at this. This is just beautiful. And this is just in the city here, so you don't even have to leave the city, and the skies are beautiful. You can look at the night skies. There's a lot of telescopes here and stuff. So this may be one of the places I'm going to have to relocate to if there's climate change. And what am I talking about? If it's happening, it depends how fast it happens. But at this point, at the rate things are going, I don't really see myself lasting too much longer in the Northeast because my body can't take the heat. I can't take the humidity, and being away from what I love is not a way to spend your life. You want to be. I don't want to be hanging out inside all the time because the air is so stifling outside. I want to be outside, not inside. It's not the way I want to spend my life. So again, this is one of the places that will be protected from climate change. You have a lot of beautiful places over here. I'll show you some more. Here is a place that see the problem with Flagstaff is there's buses inside the city and you can get around in the city, but when you want to leave the city, there's not a lot of service available. You have Amtrak and I think you have Greyhound, but those tend to be expensive. So if you want to leave Flagstaff and say go to let's say this place here, all right? This is a cool place that I'd like to check out. I don't think there's any transportation. There's a thing called Arizona Shuttle, but it's like a taxi. I have a tendency to think it would be more expensive. But you can see the beautiful scenery here, just piney scenery. And this spot particularly reminds me of the Pine Barrens a lot. I'll show you what I mean. It reminds me of, it's like, oh, where's the desert? Where's the desert? I love those desert areas. Well, we have them here in Arizona too, and I'll show you to you right here. I think this is I'm trying to find a street view here, a good spot as to where I've seen. So look at these beautiful pines here. There's a beautiful spot here, but I wanted to show you there's a desert area I want to show you. That's really cool. Again, this is north of Flagstaff, and just look at this just beautiful scenery here. These just delicious shapes here you have from the ponderosa pines. So you have this really desert-like area over here. This is the desert. These are where the lava flows are. But instead of having the sugar sand, you have the black sand. See, I don't know why it's giving me that old street view. Come on. Damn you, Google. I'm telling you, you just don't work properly. Yeah, here's the desert-like area. So here it is. So it looks like kind of desert area you'd see, around here with the pitch pines and not much else growing. It's very kind of sandy. These are just kind of areas I love. That. And, you have that over there, and you can have days to get out there and enjoy this. You have at least a number of sunny days every week. It used to be like that here. It used to have nice sunny days, at least a couple each week here in the Northeast. Now we don't get it anymore. We have to go to Flagstaff to get this weather. because they're protected from the humidity. They're protected from the tropical air. And let's look at Show Low right now. Now, Show Low is a little bit southeast of Flagstaff. Let's see what Show Low looks like. This is the city of Show Low. It's a very small city, but it actually looks similar to Flagstaff. We're going to look at take a look at what it looks like here, and you can see piney woods. So lots of piney woods. Really doesn't look that different. It's just slightly warmer. It's not humid there. It doesn't get humid. But it's you got beautiful piney woods all over the place. And we're going to look at some more pictures here of what Show Low looks like, just to give you an idea. I'd like one on a sunny day if that's possible, so we could see. Here's one on a sunny day, so you can see what it looks like. So, and most of the time they have sunny days. It's not that cloudy here. So again, piney woods. Oh my, look at that one. Yeah, the thing about ponderosa pines, guess what they also get? Witch's brooms. Yeah, it looks like there's a witch's broom on that branch right there. So they get them too. They're a lot like, they're very similar to pitch pines. They also have 3 needles as well. Very similar to pitch pines. I mean, I've looked all around the country to find a place that's anything. Flagstaff offers the perfect combination of good weather, being safe from the humidity, and pines. Lots of them. Beautiful pines. There's no other place in the country that offers those things. With the climate and the resources I like. The only thing that lacks, because you are in the middle of the land, obviously you're not going to have oceans, so you're not going to be able to go to the beach. Then again, I don't go to the beach that much, but it's still something I would miss terribly. You also don't even have that many bodies of water. You do have some bodies of water, but they're not really close to the city. And I'll go over some of the bodies of water in Flagstaff, in and around Flagstaff. There aren't that many of them. You do have an area, I think it's south of, yeah. So here is the only really large lake in Flagstaff. It's called Lake Elaine. And it's a very pretty lake, but it's also completely man-made. So it is pretty, though. It is a pretty lake. You show you the area around it, too. It's a really pretty area here around this lake. But again, it's not a large lake, and it is kind of a man-made lake. This is like the richer area of Flagstaff here. And you can see there's nothing but pines, and the lake is that way, so you can see a little bit of the lake. But again, the lake is man-made. If you want to go to more of a natural, look at these shapes here, though. But if you want to go to a more natural lake, you have to leave the city. And again, unfortunately, there's not much transportation to these places. That's why I like Long Island. And you have these lakes here, Lower Lake Mary and Upper Lake Mary. And these lakes are sometimes they come and go. Sometimes they're not there, and sometimes they are. Well, look at the street view. In this one, you'll see that the lake is not there. It's dried up in this street view, and it usually does dry up during the summer. This particular lake right here, but you do have all these beautiful pines all around the place, which is obviously amazing. You got all these just delicious shapes. Look at that nice blue sky that you see there. Just nice blue sky. You gotta have that. You know, the other lake is the lake that's Upper Lake, but again, there's no transportation that I know of in this area. You're gonna have to get there somehow without a car. That's not gonna be easy, but it is a beautiful lake. So this is a very nice lake over here. I mean, it's not that you don't have any lakes, but you know, it's just not, you don't have the abundance of bodies of water that you have in the Northeast. But you know, you definitely have the abundance of these delicious shapes here. So that's amazing with the nice blue sky. You know, you have to make some sacrifices, obviously. But, you know, there's one thing I'm never going to sacrifice: the pines. So if I can't have the pine barrens, the pitch pine barrens, it's going to be ponderosa pine barrens. So that's, you know, pretty much a look at Flagstaff again. And it's not a huge city, but, I mean, they have a downtown area. They have things to do. So there's things to do when the weather isn't nice. You have your, you know, all your stores and things like that. And yes, I believe there is an Arby's there as well. But you know what they also have? They also have Sizzler. Yeah, let me find it. I'll show you. They have Sizzler there. Now, Sizzler was a place we used to. Here's one of them. There's actually 2 Sizzlers. There was a Sizzler, and when I was a kid, we'd go to the Sizzler all the time with my parents. Unfortunately, Sizzler is no longer on the East Coast, but they are still on the West Coast. One of my favorite places to go when I was a kid. I love this place so much, and they are still in Flagstaff. So you know, I can adapt. You know, even if I had to give up Arby's, you know, I mean, just you know, there are just I'm a Long Islander. I'm used to living on the East Coast, but climate change is changing everything. It's changing everything. The whole East Coast is just becoming so tropical, and I don't know what I'm going to do in the future, but I know that I can't survive in a tropical climate. I can't survive. I can't deal with having hurricanes and not having power and dealing with the humidity. I'll die. Imagine if we had a bad hurricane and then it was brutal humidity afterwards. How would I even be able to survive? I wouldn't. I'd have to just pack up and leave, and I don't know where I would go. But I wouldn't. I know I wouldn't be able to survive. I can't survive extreme heat and humidity. I can't survive a tropical climate. And this place that I love, Long Island, that I've spent my whole life on, this climate change is going to be the thing that is going to make this place unlivable for me. There are other people who can take hurricanes and tropical weather. I can't. I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it. Every summer that goes by, I'm getting older, and my body is getting weaker, and it's draining me, and it's not a way to live. It's not a way to live. If we don't do something about this climate emergency we're in, there's a pretty good certainty eventually we'll have to move somewhere else.
So, as you see here in all the diagrams I showed you, we're going to see dramatic effects from climate change. In some parts of the world may get some colder weather. In some parts may get warmer weather. But the bottom line is we're going to be experiencing chaos. And we have to stop it, because we are going to put ourselves extinct, and we're going to make this planet a dead planet if we don't do anything about it. And I think that we need to stop burning fossil fuels. All right, I think that we need to stop burning fossil fuels. Not by 2050, not by 2040. I think we need to be stopped burning fossil fuels by 2030. All right, or as soon as possible. If we can stop burning them even sooner than that, that would be great. The government needs to pass laws to, first of all, start mandating all new vehicles be hybrids or electric at this point. No more pure, straight gasoline combustion engines for private use. That's it. Those big pickup trucks, gone. Outlawed. All right? Oh, I know. Big oil won't allow that. Wall Street doesn't like that. It's too bad if they don't like it, because we have to put the planet first. Right? When it comes to and we need to set up a network, because we really want to move toward all electric vehicles. And in order for that to happen, we need to have a network of charging stations. And there should be charging stations everywhere, mandated everywhere, whether it be at the train station parking lot, whether it be at the mall, whether it be at your fast food place, whether it be at a school, college. Every parking space, you plug in your car. That's the way it's going to be in the future. All right? That's the way it has to be in the future. Like I said before, the gasoline combustion engine must become extinct. The first step is mandating hybrids, and then down the line, about a couple more years, 5 years, we start mandating all new vehicles be electric vehicles. And we need to phase out the gasoline combustion engine, and we need to get the existing gasoline combustion engine vehicles off the road in 10 years. All of them, all right? That includes the buses, too. That includes the buses. There are some diesel buses out there that, New Jersey Transit has bought a lot of them, and there are a lot of them are just straight diesels. We're going to have to work on finding a way to converting them to electric, all right? I think, we keep those buses in service, and then when their time comes, the latest bus that came in, those buses must be replaced by electric vehicles, all right? There's no reason why you can't have electric buses. They can be good buses, but we have to have the mainstream bus manufacturers catch on to that. We have to improve mass transportation in this whole country. We need a national rail network, very similar to what Europe has. Even China has it. We have too many people flying in planes. Jet planes are extremely wasteful, and we need to cut down the air traffic. It's bad enough they put lines and contrails in our skies and all of it, but they also emit a lot of greenhouse gas, and we need to phase most of that out. The only planes that should be in the sky are for right now, because we just don't have the technology, but hopefully in the future we will. Overseas flights. But if you want to go from New York to Florida, for instance, you're going to have to take a train. No more planes. All right? And we can have a train that goes 300, 400 miles an hour. It might not be quite as quick as the plane, but I still think it'll be pretty fast. I mean, this is the way they travel in China. And China is a huge country. And most people, they travel by rail within the country, not by airplane. So that's something you just think about. And as far as generating all the electricity, we have we know how we can generate it already. We have solar, we have wind, we have geothermal, we have hydroelectric, and nuclear. Yes, nuclear. There needs to be more nuclear plants too. All right, nuclear is been a great technology, and when it came out, it was supposed to replace all the fossil fuel plants. It was supposed to replace coal, it was supposed to replace gas, and whatever we can't fill with the renewable energy, we fill with the nuclear. All right, that's how we got to stop emitting greenhouse gas in the air. And here's the thing, because once that and the permafrost is melting, and we may have been too late, that methane, once that methane comes up, we're screwed. That's a much more potent greenhouse gas. So even if we emitted, like I said before, even if we stopped emitting greenhouse gases tomorrow, we're still going to have to find ways to cool the planet down. We're still going to have to find a way to either activate a volcano to erupt. We need about a Mount Pinatubo-sized eruption every year or two to offset what has already been done. We have to have those eruptions to block out the sun. Basically, when you have a big volcano eruption like Pinatubo, or something we can mimic by spraying the kinds of particles volcanoes emit, like sulfur dioxide or whatever, into the stratosphere, those form light reflecting crystals that bounce the solar radiation out. So you're reducing the amount of solar radiation to the Earth. It's not going to be noticeable to us, but it's going to be just enough to cool the planet down, like after Mount Pinatubo erupted. And in the past, we had Mount Tambora, same thing. We're going to have to do that. We're going to have to find a way to do that. And the oceans, we're going to have to look at ways. The oceans are boiling hot, and we're going to have to find a way to cool them down somehow. There's been talk of having these pumps that basically sit in the ocean and take the cold, because if you go to the bottom of the ocean, the water is very cold. We need to find a way to somehow get that water to circulate to the surface to cool the sea surface temperatures down, and that reduces the amount of heat that's going into the atmosphere. That's something we're going to have to look into also. But this is an all hands on deck. Think of it this way. Think of climate change. I'm just going to leave it like this. Think of climate change as that huge asteroid that's heading right for the Earth. Huge asteroid, potential to wipe out most life on Earth. Think about it as that, because we need to start working together to solve this problem. And we need to do that by getting people in our government that are going to put this as a priority. All right? And that means that people that are not affiliated with Wall Street. Wall Street needs to play a much smaller role in the future of this country. But when you have, as long as you're going to have people like Donald Trump, Andrew Cuomo, all these people connected with Wall Street, Chuck Schumer, they're all connected with Wall Street. They're not really going to ever be looking out for the people, because they're getting lots of money from Wall Street and they're going to be influenced by that. Big money is influencing the government. And this is more of a political thing, but I think that we are going to have to change the way our election systems work by outlawing big campaign finance. We need campaign finance reform, basically. We need to make the use of the super PACs and huge donations from big. We need to make that illegal. It should not be allowed anymore. Nope, not be allowed. There should be a minimum amount of money an individual or company can give to a particular person running for office. And it should be a very small amount, say no more than $100. All right? We need to. This is how we take back our government in the United States. Otherwise, it's not going to be good. The world is going to hate us more. The other countries are moving on. Not all of them. Some of them are not. I mean, Canada has said that they wanted to aggressively impact climate change, and yet some provinces in Canada are unfortunately moving away from doing the right thing for the planet. So it's not just the United States, but clearly we're one of the top problems when it comes to climate change. But we should also be one of the top solutions. This country was the first country to put men on the moon. Come on, America, we can do better than this. Look at the buffoon sitting in the White House. Is this buffoon the kind of person you want to have sitting in the White House, being an example of what the United States is? No. You want a good president? You want a president that made Americans proud? Look at John F. Kennedy. Presidents like that All right? Trump, he's a disaster. He is unfit to be president, and he is going to cause, if he gets reelected again, and Wall Street is continuing to just, it's like there's a complete disconnect. You have the Wall Street elite class and their little enclaves, and they're just doing well. They're in their own little world, in their own little enclave, while the world burns around them and they could care less. These people need to wake up. We need to get them out. It's the bottom line. Who do we elect? I'm not endorsing anyone here. I'm saying is that when it comes to who is going to be our next president and our next governor and our next county executive, they've got to put the climate crisis as the number one issue that they are going to be involved in. Until that happens, we are going to continue to see these disasters ramp up across the world, and I don't know what it means for my future, because I can't handle living in a humid climate. I can't handle living in the heat, especially the humidity. I like being outside. I like being in the Pine Barrens, and I can't even go outside because it's humid, or it's hazy, or it's cloudy, or it's murky. Where are the nice blue skies? We're not getting them here anymore. Very rarely do we get a nice blue sky anymore. And one has to think, well, what am I going to have to do in the future? I love the Pine Barrens, the pitch pine. They're my favorite trees. I could never imagine being away from them. But if it's too uncomfortable outside to even go outside and enjoy them, then you may have to consider going somewhere like Flagstaff. But of course, Flagstaff has its own issues in regards to socioeconomics, and I don't talk about that much anymore, but it's like the South Shore. It's become very desirable they have the Northern Arizona University there, and they're very, as I said before, they're coming in, it's a finance school, so you have a lot of these finance professionals, or finance professional students coming in and now pricing people out. So you're having the same kind of problem there that you're having on the South Shore and other areas that have experienced this. So it's not necessarily going to be easy if I do need to relocate to Flagstaff in the future. I also don't have the transportation. I mean, Long Island has just been the place for me, and it's a place I want to stay for the rest of my life. But, if it becomes like the Gulf Coast here, or like Florida, there's no way I can survive physically or mentally. And there are going to be people that have it a lot worse. We're going to see climate refugees, we're going to see mass migrations. We can't afford this. We can't afford to be stupid anymore. We just can't afford to be stupid. We got to wake up. We've got to start putting this climate crisis first. We've got to start doing that. The government, I'm sorry, Mr. Trump, but you need to step down. You're not fit to be the president of the United States. You're just not fit. Look at the things you've said about climate change. He's even gone against his own party in some ways. The man, I have to say, is very strong, but I'm going to say this here. Donald J. Trump is a cancer. He is a cancer. Electing him, and I voted for him too, right? So I share some of the blame. Opened the Pandora's box. But the only reason why I voted for him is because the other alternative, Hillary Clinton, she was corporate too. Well, it didn't matter who you were, the Democrats were really stupid by putting her up. If it was almost anybody but her, I would never have voted for Trump. All right? And Trump made a lot of promises about, bringing law and order back to the country and stuff. And I'm not really, it's kind of off topic, but we've seen more lawlessness in the United States than we've ever seen. So it's pretty clear he only cares about Wall Street. All those things about bringing law and order to the country, that was all just a lie. He's not really into that. He's just saying that. He just wants to get people riled up. That's all he wants. That's all he wants. He belongs on a reality show, not in our White House. All right, so the sooner this man is either impeached or voted out, the better. Because he is very dangerous for this world and very dangerous for this planet. So that does conclude this video about climate change. I know, probably a long one, but it's a serious climate emergency we are in, and I had to talk to you face to face about it because we need to do something immediately about this before it's too late. It already may be too late, but let's at least try. My gosh, we've gone to the moon. Humanity has done so many amazing things. Come on, we can fix this too. All right? We got to stop burning fossil fuels. We got to start looking at ways to cool this planet down right now. Not tomorrow, not next year, not 5 years from now. We got to start right now. Thank you for watching.